The first thing I heard when I opened my eyes was laughter. Not screaming, not explosions, not the wet, choking sounds of people being torn apart in the streets. Just laughter. For several seconds, I lay completely still, staring at the white ceiling above me. My body felt too light. There was no pain in my ribs, no fever burning beneath my skin, and no deep wound across my stomach where the mutant beast had ripped me open. I slowly raised my hand. All 5 fingers were there. Clean. Uninjured. Young. My breathing stopped. I pushed myself upright so quickly that the chair beside my bed fell over. The room was small, modern, and painfully familiar. A cheap desk sat beneath the window. Unopened instant noodles were stacked beside my laptop. My old black jacket hung from the wardrobe door. This was my apartment, the apartment I had lived in before the end of the world. I stumbled toward the desk and grabbed my phone. My hands trembled so badly that I nearly dropped it. The date on the screen was April 1st, 30 days before the apocalypse. For a long moment, I could only stare. Then the memories came rushing back. On May 1st, at exactly noon, crimson cracks had appeared across the sky. Strange black towers had risen from the ground, and every electronic device in the world had displayed the same message. Humanity's survival trial had begun. Monsters poured from the towers. Animals mutated. Plants became poisonous. Food rotted overnight. Cities collapsed within days. The people who survived the first wave awakened strange abilities, but those powers did not save everyone. They only created new rulers. In my previous life, I had survived for 8 years. 8 years of hunger, betrayal, and endless fighting. I had watched friends die for a bottle of water. I had seen powerful guilds burn entire shelters just to steal supplies. I had trusted people who smiled at me in the morning and sold my location to raiders before nightfall. And in the end, I died alone beneath the ruins of Blackstone City. My last memory was of the sky turning red while a giant claw pierced through my body. Yet somehow I had returned. Not 1 year before the apocalypse. Not 6 months. 30 days. To most people, 30 days would have seemed too short to prepare for the destruction of civilization. To me, it was more than enough. I unlocked my phone and opened my banking app. The balance made me laugh, though there was no happiness in it. $32,000. That was everything I had saved after years of working as a construction project manager. In my previous life, I had considered using it as a down payment for a house. A house. The thought felt absurd now. Money would become nearly worthless after the apocalypse, but right now it was power. Could buy food, fuel, medicine, weapons, machinery, and land. Most importantly, it could buy me the one place I needed. I opened my laptop and searched for property listings. My fingers moved quickly across the keyboard until I found it. Blackstone City. Calling it a city was generous. It had once been built around a massive mining operation in the northern mountains. When the mine shut down, businesses disappeared, families moved away, and the population dropped from nearly 70,000 to fewer than 9,000. The roads were cracked. Half the buildings were abandoned. The local government was drowning in debt. Online, people mocked it constantly. They called it the Dead City, the frozen graveyard, the cheapest place in the country where no one wanted to live. But I knew what everyone else did not. When the apocalypse began, Blackstone City became one of the safest locations on the continent. The mountains around it formed a natural barrier. Beneath the city stretched a huge network of mining tunnels that could be converted into shelters and storage facilities. A hydroelectric dam stood less than 20 kilometers away. Freshwater reservoirs were nearby, and the surrounding land contained iron, coal, and several rare minerals that became priceless after modern supply chains collapsed. Most importantly, only one major road led into the city. One road could be defended. In my previous life, Blackstone had eventually become a powerful fortress under the control of the Iron King Marcus Vale. He had not built the city. He had simply taken it from the starving survivors who had failed to recognize its value. This time, I would get there first. I searched through the city's public records, property auctions, and financial reports. Blackstone's government owed more than $80 million. Entire residential blocks were listed for sale. Warehouses could be purchased for less than the price of apartments in the capital. But $32,000 was nowhere near enough to buy a city. Fortunately, I already knew how to get more. In my previous life, several major events had occurred during April. A small pharmaceutical company would announce successful test results in 6 days, causing its stock price to increase nearly 20 times. A forgotten cryptocurrency would explode in value after being promoted by a famous billionaire. And on April 18th, the winning numbers of the largest national lottery would be announced. I remembered every number. People often said that knowledge was power. They were wrong. Knowledge was only power when you had the courage to use it. I transferred nearly all my savings into an investment account, leaving only enough for rent, food, and transportation. Then I purchased as many shares of the pharmaceutical company as I could. It was a dangerous move. If my memories were wrong, I would lose almost everything. But the scars that no longer existed on my body felt more real than the room around me. I knew the apocalypse was coming. I knew millions would die. And I knew that Blackstone City would become the center of a new world. My phone suddenly rang. The name on the screen made my expression freeze. Ethan Cole, my younger brother. In my previous life, Ethan had stolen my emergency supplies 3 days after the apocalypse began. He had taken our parents with him and left me locked inside a burning building. Years later, I learned that he had joined a powerful survivor guild. He had lived comfortably for almost 2 years using the supplies I had gathered. When I finally found him, he had looked me directly in the eyes and told me that abandoning me had been necessary. The strong survived. The weak became sacrifices. I answered the call. "Adrian," Ethan said cheerfully, "Mom and Dad want everyone together for dinner tonight. Don't be late again." I looked at my reflection in the dark laptop screen. The man staring back at me was younger than the one who had died beneath Blackstone, but his eyes were exactly the same, calm, cold, and already finished mourning the family that had betrayed him. "I'll be there," I said. Then I ended the call and looked once more at the map of Blackstone City. Before I could build my fortress, I needed money. Before I could prepare for the apocalypse, I needed to cut away every weakness from my previous life. And before the world ended, I wanted to see my family's faces when they realized I was no longer the obedient fool they remembered. I closed the laptop and spent the next 2 hours turning memory into a plan. 30 days sounded generous until I began dividing them. 6 days until the pharmaceutical announcement. 17 days until the lottery drawing. 30 days until every rule holding civilization together disappeared. I created separate lists for money, property, supplies, personnel, and security. The first 3 could be solved with enough capital. The last 2 were more dangerous. A fortress was only as strong as the people inside it. In my previous life, I had learned that lesson too late. I could reinforce walls, store food, and build underground shelters, but if I filled Blackstone with greedy cowards, they would open the gates themselves the moment someone offered them a better deal. I needed specialists, engineers, doctors, farmers, electricians, mechanics, former soldiers, people who were useful, but also people who would not stab me in the back for a warm meal. That list would take time. For now, I had a family dinner to attend. I showered, changed into a clean dark shirt, and put on my black jacket. Before leaving, I checked the investment account one last time. The money was gone. Nearly every dollar I had saved was now trapped inside shares that the market considered almost worthless. The old version of me would have panicked. This version simply locked the apartment door and walked away. My parents lived 40 minutes across the city in the same house where Ethan and I had grown up. I had not visited often, even before the apocalypse. Every dinner followed the same pattern. Ethan arrived smiling. My mother praised him. My father found something wrong with me. Then someone needed money. By the time I reached the house, the sun was beginning to lower behind the rooftops. The front garden was still perfectly maintained. My mother cared deeply about how things looked from the outside. I rang the bell. Ethan opened the door almost immediately. "There he is," he said, spreading his arms as though we had not seen each other in years. The busy man finally remembers he has a family. His smile was exactly as I remembered. Warm, easy, convincing. I once thought that smile meant he loved me. Now I only saw a mask. Ethan wore the same beige jacket I had pictured during the call. His hair was neatly arranged, and a faint, expensive fragrance followed him as he stepped aside. I entered without returning his smile. The dining table was already covered with food. My mother had prepared more than enough for 4 people, but the best dishes were placed beside Ethan's seat. Some things survived even the end of the world. "Adrian," my mother said, approaching me with a concerned look, "you look tired. Are you eating properly?" "I'm fine. You always say that." She reached for my arm, but I moved toward the table before she could touch me. My father watched from his chair. He gave me a small nod rather than a greeting. "You're late." I checked the wall clock. I was 3 minutes early. "I'll arrive earlier next time." He frowned, unable to decide whether I was apologizing or mocking him. I sat down. For the first several minutes, the dinner was ordinary. My mother asked about work. My father complained about rising prices. Ethan told a long story about a business contact who supposedly wanted to invest in one of his ideas. I barely listened. Instead, I studied them. These were the 3 people who would leave me to die. My mother, who would later claim she had no choice. My father, who would say that saving the younger son was the logical decision. Ethan, who would take everything I had prepared and call it survival. I expected anger. What I felt was distance. They had already become strangers to me years ago. Finally, Ethan placed his fork down and leaned back. "Actually, Adrian, there's something I wanted to talk to you about." There it was. My mother became unusually interested in her plate. My father folded his hands. Ethan continued, "I found a great opportunity. A logistics platform connecting small suppliers directly with construction companies. The market is huge, and I already have people interested." I knew this opportunity. In my previous life, Ethan had borrowed $50,000 from me for it. The platform never existed. He used most of the money to cover gambling debts and spent the rest on a luxury trip with his girlfriend. When I discovered the truth, my parents told me not to destroy the family over money. "How much?" I asked. His face brightened. "I knew you'd understand. I only need $40,000 to secure the first round. It's not even really a loan. Think of it as an investment." "I don't have $40,000. His smile weakened slightly. "But you've been saving for years." "I invested it." "In what?" "Something with better odds." My mother looked up sharply. "Adrian, your brother came to you first because he trusts you." "No. He came to me because a bank would ask for documents." Silence spread across the table. Ethan gave a short laugh, but his eyes had changed. "Come on. There's no need to make it sound suspicious. Then show me the registered company, contracts, investor agreements, projected costs, and tax records." His mouth opened. Nothing came out. My father struck the table lightly with his palm. "That's enough. Your brother is trying to build something for himself. You should support him instead of interrogating him." I looked at him calmly. "Would you give him $40,000? His expression hardened. "That isn't the point." "It is exactly the point." My mother sighed as if I were the one causing trouble. "You're the older brother. Ethan has always been more ambitious, but ambition needs support. You have a stable job. You can recover the money." There it was. The same logic they would use after the apocalypse. Adrian can endure it. Adrian can rebuild. Adrian can be sacrificed because Adrian is stronger. I placed my napkin beside the plate and stood. Ethan's friendly expression finally disappeared. "You're really refusing?" "Yes." "Because of some random investment?" "Because it's my money." My father rose as well. "Sit down. We're not finished." "I am." My mother stared at me as though she no longer recognized me. Maybe she didn't. The son who used to surrender just to keep the peace had died beneath Blackstone City. I turned toward the door, but Ethan spoke behind me. "You're going to regret treating family like this." I stopped. For a moment, I remembered flames crawling across an apartment wall while he carried my supplies away. Then I looked back at him. "No," I said. "I already regretted trusting you once." His face went still. He could not understand the meaning behind those words. Not yet. I left the house and stepped into the cool evening air. My phone vibrated before I reached the sidewalk. An email had arrived from the Blackstone Municipal Property Office. They had responded to the inquiry I submitted earlier. Several warehouses and residential buildings were available. But beneath the list was something far more valuable. Due to the city's debt crisis, Blackstone was accepting private redevelopment proposals for an entire abandoned district. The opening price was $12 million. I stared at the screen. In 6 days, if the market moved exactly as I remembered, 12 million would no longer be impossible. And for the first time since waking up, I smiled. The smile remained on my face for only a few seconds. Then I opened the email again and read every line carefully. Excitement was dangerous. In my previous life, excitement had made people careless. They rushed into supply stores, trusted false allies, and spent resources before understanding what they were buying. I had survived because I learned to question everything. The $12 million opening price covered more than I initially expected. 37 warehouses, 6 abandoned apartment blocks, 2 former processing factories, a rail yard, a municipal maintenance depot, and nearly 4 square kilometers of neglected industrial land. It was not the whole city, but it was enough to control its most valuable district. The redevelopment agreement also included temporary tax relief, discounted utility access, and the right to renovate several underground service tunnels connected to the old mining network. That last detail mattered more than everything else combined. I enlarged the attached map. 3 service tunnels ran directly beneath the abandoned district. In the current era, they were considered unsafe and expensive to maintain. After the apocalypse, those same tunnels would become secure supply routes. One connected to the northern mine entrance. Another passed close to the old railway depot. The third ended less than 3 kilometers from the reservoir. The person who controlled those tunnels could move food, weapons, fuel, and people beneath the city without exposing them to monsters or raiders. I downloaded every document. Then I called the number listed beneath the email. A woman answered after the 3rd ring. Blackstone Municipal Development Office. This is Laura Bennett. Her voice sounded tired. Good evening. My name is Adrian Cole. I received your response regarding the abandoned industrial district. There was a brief pause. Most people probably submitted inquiries out of curiosity and disappeared as soon as they saw the price. Yes, Mr. Cole. Have you reviewed the proposal? I have. I'd like to arrange an inspection. This time, the silence lasted longer. You want to visit the district? I wouldn't purchase land I haven't inspected. Her tone immediately became more professional. Of course, we can arrange access, but I should clarify that several buildings require structural repairs. Some roads are damaged, and utility service is limited in the western section. That won't be a problem. She hesitated again. May I ask what kind of redevelopment you're considering? A fortified city capable of surviving the end of civilization. I looked down the quiet suburban street. Industrial storage, private infrastructure, and long-term residential restoration. It was not a lie. It simply left out the monsters. Laura scheduled the inspection for 3 days later. That gave me enough time to research the district, arrange transportation, and prepare the appearance of a serious investor. Right now, I was only a construction project manager with almost no money in his account. If Blackstone's officials discovered that, they might cancel the meeting before I reached the city. I needed credibility. By the time I returned to my apartment, it was nearly 10 at night. I reopened my laptop and searched through every professional contact I had made during my career. Most were ordinary contractors. A few were useful. Only one was perfect, Victor Hale. He owned a small infrastructure consulting firm that had been close to bankruptcy for the past year. In my previous life, Victor rebuilt 3 survivor settlements and designed Blackstone's first reinforced outer wall. He was one of the best engineers I had ever known. He was also dead by the 2nd year of the apocalypse. Marcus Vale had offered him protection in exchange for complete control of his designs. Victor refused. 3 days later, his workshop burned down with him inside it. I found his current business profile. Hale Infrastructure Solutions. The website looked professional, but the recent project page had not been updated in 8 months. I called him. He answered with the impatient voice of a man who expected another creditor. Victor Hale. My name is Adrian Cole. I'm looking for a structural consultant for a large redevelopment project. His tone changed slightly. What kind of project? An abandoned industrial district in Blackstone City. He laughed once, not because it was funny, because he thought I was wasting his time. You want to rebuild Blackstone? I want to evaluate it first. That city has been dying for 15 years. I know. The warehouses are outdated. The mine tunnels are unstable. The municipal government will promise anything if you agree to inherit their problems. I know that too. He became quiet. Then why are you calling me? Because you submitted a private study on Blackstone's tunnel network 4 years ago. The silence on the other end became complete. That study was never published. In my previous life, Victor had mentioned it while repairing a collapsed shelter. He believed Blackstone could become nearly self-sufficient if someone modernized the dam connections, reinforced the tunnels, and restored the rail depot. At the time, no investor had listened. How do you know about that study? He asked. I saw part of it through an old project archive. It was a weak explanation, but not impossible. What exactly do you want? I want you to accompany me to Blackstone in 3 days. Inspect the warehouses, tunnels, rail yard, utilities, and surrounding terrain. I'll pay $5,000 for the evaluation. I had less than $2,000 available, but by the time payment was due, I expected the stock to begin moving. Victor did not answer immediately. $5,000 was too small for a major firm. For a nearly bankrupt consultant, it was enough to listen. Half in advance, he said. $2,000 tomorrow. The rest after the inspection. That isn't half. It is what I'm offering. He exhaled sharply. You negotiate like someone with more money than patience. I have very little of either. For the first time, he sounded amused. Send me the documents. I emailed him everything except the municipal debt reports. He did not need to know how desperate Blackstone was yet. When the call ended, I added Victor's name beneath the personnel list. Engineer, strategist, potential ally, not trusted. No one was trusted yet. I leaned back and looked at the apartment around me. The city outside was quiet. Restaurants were still open. Cars moved through illuminated streets. People were making plans for next month. They had no idea there might not be a next month. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from Ethan. You embarrassed me tonight. Mom is crying. Dad says you need to apologize. I stared at the words, then deleted the message. A second one arrived immediately. Also, I need the money by Friday. Think carefully before you destroy this family. I almost laughed. He still believed the family was something I feared losing. I blocked his number. Then I opened a new document and created another list. People who might become threats before the apocalypse. Ethan Cole was the first name. Marcus Vale was the second. I paused before adding the third. Selena Cross. In my previous life, she was known as the White Merchant, the woman who controlled medicine, fuel, and weapons across 5 survivor territories. Before the apocalypse, she was the daughter of a bankrupt distribution company owner. In 22 days, her father would take his own life after losing everything. In 30 days, Selena would begin building an empire from the supplies hidden in his warehouses. Those warehouses were still full right now, and if I moved before she did, I could buy the entire company for almost nothing. I searched for the business. Cross-continental distribution. A liquidation notice appeared on the first page. The auction was tomorrow morning.